Hey guys, our guest today has spent the last 15 years in new product development, dreaming up crazy ideas from how to kill bugs dead to developing new ice cream forms that hit shelves in 2020. She loves thinking about things that the world needs and figuring out how to make them happen. She was pregnant, and that's when she began thinking about what types of books she wanted to fill her library with. As you can see behind her, she's got this awesome library of books when I bring her on in just a second. She started searching for an inspirational book highlighting role models, and when it didn't exist, she decided to write it. And as a mom, there are few things that excite her as much as seeing who her child will become. She's on a mission to inspire her daughter and other children to not only dream, but to also do. Welcome to the show, author of Dream It and Do It, a reader's favorite 5-star new release, Holly Sharp.
What a wonderful intro. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. What a wonderful book. Guys, this came just in time for Christmas. And thank you so much for the gift, by the way, for my daughter. She personalized it for Isabel. Isabel, keep dreaming. You will do amazing things. Signed, Holly Sharp. What an amazing book. Guys, the artwork, I want to just show you real quick. There are so many cool people featured in this book. Like, we're going to talk exactly about why she wrote this book and what it's all about. I'm just going to give the concept off the top here. 100 possibilities, stories, real-life role models for girls and boys. And that's what we're talking about. Holly, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
And you guys can tune in at dreamitanddoit.com. That's where the book is available. It's also on Amazon. My sister, who's a school teacher, she saw me reading this at Christmas time, and she's like, what's this book all about? And she actually got a copy for her classroom, her second grade classroom. You guys can tune in to Holly on Instagram at dream_it-and-do-it. And on Facebook, it is The Possibilities Ahead. And this is such an awesome conversation because many of the people in the audience that are tuning in are either already entrepreneurs, they're budding entrepreneurs, they're people that are going to be inspired by all the different people covered in this book. Okay, but what I want to kind of launch into first is just giving you congratulations on becoming a mom. I saw that
Thank
you have a beautiful daughter. You're welcome. Beautiful baby girl. That's a big part of this story. She inspired you because you were looking to have this awesome book for her. Didn't exist. And you said, well, guess what? I'm going to make it. I'm going to write it. And you mentioned that's really what inspired you to write the book. Let's get into it. So that mentality, like, I want you to tell our audience, I want them to hear it from you. What made you not only create the book, but what can they experience when they open this book up?
Sure. So probably a lot of new moms have experienced this. I was asked to put together a list of books for my baby's library. We probably are approaching 100 books, and she's 9 months old. So we're huge readers in my family. And as people were asking me the type of books that I wanted, I was looking for a lot of books that were, inspirational and could really teach her something about bullying and diversity and what, possible futures or careers that she could look into. And what I really wanted was a book that kind of showed that there's a lot of options. And so when I was looking at career books, what I found was that there's some really, really wonderful, especially in STEM right now, books about very specific careers. So Iggy Peck Architect is an absolutely wonderful book, but it covers one career. And what I wanted was something I could sit down with my daughter and read through that really helped show her that there's so many things you can be, and you should use your childhood as a way to experiment to what you're good at, what you enjoy. 'Cause I can't possibly show her everything that she can possibly be. And her father and I are both business people. So we can teach her a lot about marketing and business and whatever, but she won't learn as much from us about science and those types of careers. And I really wanted a place where we could have that dialogue.
Yeah.
So my hope is that when parents and kids open this book together, that it really gives them an idea of what types of careers exist that they may not be exposed through their parents or through school. And what I really tried hard to do was end each story with an opportunity for each kid to go experiment with something that helps them understand whether they would enjoy that career or not. And even more than that, an opportunity for parents to have a conversation with their kids of, does that sound interesting to you? Would you like to do that? And even things that they can do together. So I hope that, while I made this book as a tool for me and my daughter, I hope that other parents find the same opportunities for talking about what their kid might be.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you so much. And guys, I just want you to know how geeked up I am again for having this book as an entrepreneur, someone who seeks out by watching YouTube videos or buying individual books from people who have done amazing things. This is literally 100 stories, and they're a couple pages each, but there's different categories artistic dreams, discoverers, product developers, artistic designers, service, medical. There's like the lemonade stand concept where they literally started it from the scratch, like as a kid, right? Helpers, nature, helpers, growth. I even took some notes here because I'm obviously going to read every single page, and I'm excited to read this with my daughter, Isabel. But there's people like Dave Ramsey highlighted, Tony Robbins right here. And the artwork is tremendous. If you want to pay respect to the artists as well, give them a shout out because the artwork in this book is incredible.
Thank you. I worked really hard to try to make the artwork somewhat realistic because I wanted kids to not see them as fairy tales. I wanted them to see them as people that they could really relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but it gives it this look where it's all consistent, right? And not only is the artwork fantastic, the way that you wrote the story and break it down for each person really does them justice. And it's also really cool the way it's formatted. You broke it into categories, as I mentioned, and it's easy to digest and it's easy to find the different stories. They're all numbered. So I'm reading it, and at first I'm going to dive into the 5 or 6 people that have my interest already. Mm-hmm. And then what I'm excited about is going back and starting from the beginning and just reading them one at a time and knowing how that's going to inspire me. And then to talk about my daughter, she's 5, she'll be 6 very soon, pretty close to when this episode's going to release. And I'm excited for her. Like you mentioned earlier, there's so many different fields. I don't want to force feed, because I love music and I love entrepreneurship and I'm into media, that those 3 things are also going to be interesting for my daughter. She might want to be in ballet. She might want to be a hockey player. Who knows? She might want to be a teacher. She might want to be a product innovator like yourself, and we'll talk more about that. So I have no idea what story in here or stories are going to get the light bulb going for her. And then she's going to be thinking about different ideas. For me, it was watching movies by Steven Spielberg, like Jurassic Park. I talk about it a few times on my show. That was just a movie, the way it was done, the way that the visual storytelling was, it still holds up 20 years later, 25 years later now. And it's just incredible. You don't know what each child will be influenced by. And like you said, you mentioned your husband and yourself. There's so much that you can do as a parent to be highly influential in your child's life. And it's super important to be in tune with that. But at the same time, there is something about their environment that will inspire them differently, because they're not mom told me to do this or dad told me to do this. It's kind of happening while they're discovering it. And there's magic in that. It's why kids love sports. They see it happen. And it's not their dad telling them that they have to do it. It's they're falling in love with it, whether it's a play or, playing with your toys or reading a story.
To me, it's the magic of parenthood. I mean, there's so many things that are required to be a parent, right? I mean, just keeping them alive and making sure that, they're meeting all their milestones, et cetera, et cetera. But the magic, I feel the reason that you give up so much of yourself to be a parent is because watching another human being become good at something and develop into their own selves, that's what really makes parenthood to me so special. And so I absolutely love that we have this tool in our house that, I mean, I love that it's something I feel I can give to her, but that I can be a part of seeing whether that thing is cooking or whether that thing is swimming or whether that thing, I could come up with a 100 hobbies that kids can go do, and you can't possibly do 100 of them. So my hope is that this book will help parents focus in on the things that their kids can be really good at. And frankly, like that has such an influence over who people become. And I mean, a lot of these stories, if you read them, they start off talking about a lot of these people's childhoods, and so much of who they became as adults, successful and happy adults, had to do with their childhood. And so I think, to me, like, I love my role in that as a parent, to see how she'll use her interests and her personality to become somebody someday.
That's why, and I appreciate it, we mentioned this off air, that you checked out a couple episodes. And if you noticed, I'm not interviewing someone to only talk about their book or the product or their service and just have them for an hour kind of do an infomercial. It's not that at all. It's really about their story. It's about why they do what they do, how they got to where they're at today, and where they're looking to go. And then the idea of the show is like to see them continue on in their greatness. And I've interviewed people in multiple fields, multiple roles, different backgrounds, different stories. I try to have a diverse situation each episode. A lot of times there's common interests and denominators and things, but why I feel this book is so amazing is it has such a wide range. It's not just talking about like the Steve Jobs of the world. It's talking about like the person who, I'm just going to flip to a random page, like, dreaming, designing inside of homes, Joanna Gaines. I'm not familiar with her yet, but Joanna Gaines right here could be as influential as Kobe Bryant, for example, right? Like maybe not everybody in the book. My point is not everybody in the book is a household celebrity name, but they're just as important to the economy, to science, to education, to inspiration. And that, I think, is what you like really sum it up so well in this book. And again, I just wanted to make sure people understood that. There's a really cool quote right here that I took note. It says, kids who develop interests and talents earlier in life are more likely to find joy and success as adults. So can you talk about some of the research you did in understanding how important it is to inspire children? Sure. What made you decide to do this?
So there's a book that's called Childhood Roots of Adult Happiness. And it was written by a psychologist that did research not into necessarily success as a lot of business people see it, but he measured like children's happiness. And what he found was that there are 5 things that make that parents can do to influence their children's future happiness. And what it really comes down to is finding something that kids are good at and having the discipline enough to routinely work on that skill. And what the case that he makes is that, one, if you have the discipline to learn something well, that you're more likely in adulthood to not give up on something. So, and frankly, like that's a skill no one can take from you, right? So even if you say, like, I'm going to choose ballerina because every little girl at some point wants to be a ballerina. And I'll tell you, out of the 100 people I wrote about, I can think of anyone that works harder than ballerinas. Like they're working 8 hours a day practicing, and then they're putting on shows at night, 7 days a week, and it's incredibly hard on their bodies.
I remember a picture. It's like a meme that has like the ballerina feet that they're all just busted and bleeding, and like you don't see that part because you're just seeing like the beautiful performance, but it's that what goes into it. The word discipline, seriously, I think if I had to sum up the difference between someone who's great, whether it's an athlete, an entrepreneur, myself compared to the best version of myself, the difference is discipline. Like I have great ideas, but I know when life happens and a month of time goes off and I look back at my goals and I'm like, darn it, I didn't do X, Y, Z. The only reason I didn't was discipline. I was going to keep the show PG here. Stuff gets in the way, right, of life. I just lost my father, and I believe you know about that now, but my dad passed away before Christmas, before we're recording this episode. And so December of this year has been the most difficult time for myself and my family. Like I still have no way to put that into words. That's an excuse though. Like still, if someone was like, well, how come you're not, driving through to the end of the year. So many people can say, Mike, it's okay, take some time off. And I did. I spent some time with my family. But at the end of the day, it's the consistent discipline that is going to make someone different from just being okay and average to being really great at what they do. It's again, showing up first, staying late. Also having discipline. It's not only about like this grueling hard worker. It's discipline to eat the right foods, to go to the gym. It's discipline to have your entire family at the kitchen table. In 2020 or 2021, when you're listening to this, that may sound like a foreign concept. Discipline to turn the TV off at 8 p.m. and read a book. And discipline to go to bed at 10 p.m. and get up at 5 a.m. or whatever it is. So again, that key word discipline, I think, is so important. And I'm saying it out loud because it's a reminder for myself. I do not have life figured out. I don't have business figured out. The reason for doing my show is to bring excellent people on like you that help us strike up these conversations. And the benefit is really to not only you and I, but greatly to the audience listening right now. So
one of the things that I really liked about listening to your show is that I feel like at the root of every episode was some reminder to take into the day of how to either be a better person, how to be a better member of your family. And obviously the type of person I am, I like that it's couched in someone who's done something cool worth, hearing about. But I do appreciate that. And I think that it is one of the great lessons that I learned when researching how to talk about my book is this particular research that was done, because part of the argument that's made about discipline for kids isn't about punishment or being strict or anything like that. It's really about if your kid can learn to be good at something, they're more likely to take that talent and do something with it that will make them happy, right? So if you learn to love painting in your childhood, you're more likely to be happy as an adult because you figure out a way to use that painting in a way that influences how you make money. But the second piece, which I found even more interesting, is as you learn the discipline of doing something, you also learn the heartache of failure. And one of the things that makes for happy adults is realizing that you can fail and come out the other end of it better for it, or having learned a lesson. And I think one of the points that this researcher makes is that as you learn a discipline, so let's say in this case that it's learning to play the guitar, you won't be perfect in trying to learn it, but once you have, you can see that, like, if you dedicate yourself enough to something, it's worth it, and that failing is okay and you'll survive it. And I think that that's something that is an immeasurable gift that you can give to your children, is helping them see it's okay to fall down because you'll get back up.
Right. And what you learn from falling down too, not only physically falling down, it's mental too. And children will learn that as time goes. I'm looking here on page 7 of the book. There's a couple quotes. I'm going to read one in a second, but the one that you just mentioned, talking about failure, right here, it says, you may try 99 times and fail, but what if you change the world the 100th time you try? So it's that 3 feet from gold mentality, which is talked about in the book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I'm finishing that book right now. It's fantastic. I'm going to read it probably 100 times in my life. It's that good. There's so many good reminders in that book, but that's the point. I mean, if it takes 100 times, it took 10,000 times to try to make a light bulb turn on for Edison, 10,000 on average before it worked. If he gave up, none of us, like, what would electricity, someone may have figured it out, but who knows if it's the same, if it's what he discovered. And if he gave up after 5,000 times or 900 or 9,999, we're not having this conversation the same way. Gretzky's quote, Wayne Gretzky, one of the greatest, if not the greatest hockey player, says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
I had that No Fear t-shirt myself in the
90s. That's like step 1 is take the shot. Yeah. And then step 2 is like when you miss the shot, to not be afraid to take another shot. And this may be if you heard me say this on my show multiple times, I want to say thank you for listening to multiple episodes and continuing to listen to me, because I've said it a few times now, but Michael Jordan, one of my favorite athletes of all time, talks about he says the reason that he was so good, that he made all those shots and has all the points and all this stuff, was because he shot and failed. And like he said, he missed 9,000 times. He could tell you exactly how many shots he missed. And he says, that's why I made all those other shots, because I just wasn't afraid. And like someone who shoots half the times that I did is going to have way less points than me because they kind of played more afraid, or like only wanted to shoot when they felt it was a clean shot. And he was just like going to come at you relentless. The dude's relentless. So, the other quote I want to talk about, and I usually don't pull as many quotes out of this book, but I'm telling you, this is something, if someone doesn't have a copy in their hands while they're listening to this, obviously, I want them to experience it. Awesome quote right here. It's okay to want to make money. It's okay to want to be famous. It's okay to want to follow talent that you're good at. All of these things just get better. The keyword, they get better when you use your money and talents to improve the world around you as well. And I completely agree. And that's super well articulated. Where did that understanding and influence come from for you?
I really think after getting through 100 stories, and I'll be honest, I probably had to get through more like 120 to really find the right one. So I wrote this over the course of 6 months. So I learned about 120 people in 6 months. And what I really found was that the stories that stuck out to me as being special and the people that really caught my attention were the ones that didn't just have talent, but figured out how to take that talent and make the world a better place around them. Even just, I've probably developed a dozen new products over the course of my career, and I've never been happier than working on one that I think will make a difference in the life of a child. And so even just from my own, like how it feels to do something, like it's great to fuel the economy, and I'm a capitalist myself, but if you can take those talents and figure out how to make the world a better place, I think that, again, to me, success is about figuring out how to be happy and live the life that you want. So, I think you fuel that happiness by giving back and figuring out how to make the world around you better.
Yeah, it's all about giving back. It's like you feel on fire when your purpose is on fire. When you feel that the reason that you're doing a product or service or writing a book and spending 6 months doing it while you're already crazy busy is because you feel that it's going to benefit so many more people. It's all about how it serves. The keyword is serves. I forget who says this quote. It's someone very popular, but it was, if you want to make $1 million, help 1 million people. Forget who that was. It might have been Warren Buffett or someone, but it's like, if you want to make $1 million, help 1 million people. Like, if you're not making any money, you're probably not helping that many people out, whether it's clients, customers, while you're selling hot dogs at the corner. Like, you're not servicing or helping that many people if you're not, so I always think about, who can I help? How can I help them? Even if it's to my own network. There's a great book, if you haven't read it, check it out, called The Go-Giver by Bob Berg. I had the privilege of interviewing him. That book is an international bestseller, and it's all about like giving without expecting anything in return. Like, you're just of service to your network. If they need something, you're the guy or gal that can connect them with someone who's great. And then they're like, yeah, Bob's amazing. And all you did was connect, Holly's awesome. What did I do? I just told you about this awesome book I read and connected you with the author, but you're, in their space now as a credible person, and you're not doing it for that reason. You're just doing it for the good of connecting that person. And then all of a sudden you might need some help in a month, and you call on someone and they're going to deliver for you because, you're a go-giver. And I can see that you are a go-giver, and that's the mentality that you have.
I love that phrase. There's a story in there that if you haven't read yet, I think you would really like. It's in the Lemonade section, and it's about a logistics manager that works at UPS. And like, being a logistics manager sounds like, not, it doesn't hold up the same way that being a ballerina does, right? Like, I don't feel like there's little kids running around saying, I want to be a logistics manager. But what I really loved about the story was that her perspective is that, exactly, yep. Her perspective is that we don't have a hunger problem in the world. We have a logistics problem. And she makes the case for how logistics can solve world hunger. Yeah. And I think that, that's such a cool story and an example of how careers that seem uninteresting to young people can actually be quite interesting, because I do think that young people care about hunger. And when you flip the problem on its head and say, we have plenty of food, the problem is we can't get the food to the places it needs to be. And then all of a sudden, now you're actually talking about changing the world through logistics. So I think there's a number of examples, but that was the first one that came to my head of how, you don't have to go into nonprofit. You don't have to set out to just do good. Like you can follow something you're passionate about and still on top of that, do something good for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the big question is, where did this kind of all stem from? Because you have this incredible mentality, and it seems like it's like inbred, like in you, and it's in your DNA. Is this something that entrepreneurship, for example, is that in your family?
No, in fact, I don't know anyone in my family that's my brother-in-law, I guess, bought a company recently. But for the most part, I would say that my a lot of my dreaming, I guess, comes from my grandma
Mhm.
and my father. They're big dreamers. My grandma was a teacher, and she used to hitchhike every summer to work in various factories or on farms to earn the money to go to college because her parents weren't going to pay for a girl to go to college. They thought it was a waste of money.
Wow.
And my dad's always been the same way. In fact, I would say that if product development had been a career that existed for his generation, I think that he would have been very happy doing what I do for a living.
Mhm.
But when I started studying marketing, I found that I enjoyed the roles where I was creating new products the most. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. So working in corporate new product development led me to working alongside startups as a consultant. And then from there, kind of, I felt like I had the tools I need to do it for myself. So when I found myself unemployed, exactly a year ago, actually, I was 8 months pregnant and quite aware of the fact that, a lot of companies aren't hiring 8 to 9 month pregnant women. And
Yeah.
my daughter was born the weekend that the world shut down. So she was born on March 18. So I came out of the hospital going, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's not going back to corporate America. So I need to figure out, what is it that I'm excited about? And I'd started researching this children's book before I went into the hospital, and I kind of thought I was insane and did all the research to figure out what would it cost and what would it take to write a book. And then as soon as I came out of the hospital, I was like, I have to do this. This is
Mhm.
the world did this to me. Like my path through the 2020 was to write this book. And honestly, I really think it made me such a better new mom
Yeah.
because I had something for myself while being kind of forced to stay home with a new baby.
A great quote, and it's not just a quote, because quotes are like, oh, that's great, let's put it on Pinterest or whatever. No, it's a great way of living. I call it a mindset, something you apply. You take that quote and you apply it, and it's everything happens for you, not to you. So you could take the pandemic and play woe is me, and it's the reason if your business isn't going well or your family life isn't going well. Or I just had to quarantine like 3 different times because like 5 different close family members had COVID. So I haven't been able to see my girlfriend very much. And like, it's easy to get down. A lot of people are not able to see their family members. A lot of
Mm.
people had to do Christmas via Zoom. And the magic is kind of, and you see a lot about depression and suicide and stuff, and it's horrible what's going on. But I do feel like if you're able to get yourself thinking how this happened for me, and maybe not being so self-centered, like the whole pandemic happened for Mike DiCioccio or Holly Sharp. Not even saying that. We're just saying, okay, this happened. What can I learn from it, and how can I be better for it? And look, guess what? All these people have adversity. They have stories from what they learned in their childhood. I bet you out of these 100 people, and I didn't finish the book yet, but I bet you out of 100, there's not too many, if any, that are spoon fed. Like, here's $1 million, start your business, kid. No, it's not that at all. It's a lot of times it's first generation entrepreneurs, people like Tony Robbins, who talked about the moment his life changed is when he spent his last $9 or $12, whatever it was, and giving it to this little kid who opened the door for his mother. I don't know if you ever heard Tony Robbins tell that story, but it's amazing. And so, what I'd like to do is help educate our listeners again, if they're thinking about entrepreneurship or they are entrepreneurs, or anyone in this book. It's not only business people, but it could be just someone who's kind of a world changer in their own space. Let's highlight some common denominators. And if someone owns the book, they can see these on page 7, but some common denominators among individuals highlighted in the book.
So I think a big one is that they didn't wait to get started. And I think that this is one of the things that when people ask me about what I learned from writing the book, that one of the first things that comes to my mind is that a lot of, like, I bet everyone listening to this podcast has something in their head they want to go do.
Yeah.
The reason they've tuned in, right? Like, there's
It's
either,
called being alive. You have something of interest.
Yes. Like, there's something that, like, whether it's big or small, that you've kind of just been on your mind, or that you are waiting to, like, figure out, what can I take that leap? And I think what I was impressed by the consistency of people in this book was that they didn't wait to say, like, well, I have to go get a college degree first, or I need to wait till I have more money in the bank, or I need to wait until I get married. People just did it. And it was one of the things that, when I was looking for the title of my book, that's really what inspired that, was that it's not just lots of people have dreams, but doing it is super special. And in the author world, or in the, a lot of people talk about plagiarism, and aren't you worried about sharing your ebook? And there's a lot of discussions around that. And I just think, like, the hardest part was writing this. Like, the hardest, like, if you go ahead and share my ideas for free, I don't care. But I really do think that, like,
you want to help people out so that
yes,
you can read it or see it. It's kind of like in a band, which I've been in multiple bands, when, recording a CD was a thing, and we were trying to sell our CD for like $10 at the concert or online, when there was a company called CD Baby that people could buy your music.
Yes, exactly what you're talking about.
I was also like the first generation of iTunes music, like getting your songs on iTunes for people to buy them. And like, everyone was just so upset about people giving your CD away or ripping it. Remember, you can just, like, you can download it or rip it or whatever. And I was kind of like, well, now, like, one person bought it and heard it, and now, like, his friends listening to it. So yeah, did we not make another $10? Well, that dude might really like us and come to more shows and want to buy your next one and tell his 3 friends about it. Or, like, I'm still happy that this thing is growing, and that at the end of the day, influencing more people, or like we said earlier, helping 1 million people, you'll make $1 million. If you're just, like, trying to crush it $10 at a time, you're thinking about it too small. Yeah, and your book wasn't, you probably weren't thinking about retiring early by releasing this book. You were thinking about how many people I can help in this year, especially the crazy year we've had, but how many people can I help? And, it's just like getting this cool thing that you personally discovered, that you could have wrote this book and shared it only with your daughter, but that would have been like a sin, like, it helped 2 people instead of how many people we can hit.
Yeah, I think that, even when I was talking about this book before my daughter was born, and I was working with a lawyer, just trying to figure out, like, what are the steps I need to get started, et cetera. And, they advised me against sharing too broadly my idea. Honestly, if 100 other people wrote the same book, I think there's a space for all of us. Like, I would love there to be 1,000 stories that kids.
Yeah, you could easily do a new edition every year. There's so many people in the world to cover.
Like, even choosing 100, you have to be choosy, right? I could choose the next 100 without barely having to try, because there really are so many things. Even, I think, like, the medical field, I include maybe 5 or 6 stories. That could be 50 stories if you wanted it to be, right? You could go deep into any one of these.
Or the education system, great teachers that don't get enough love. Or COVID, we talk about superheroes, and you see all these big blockbuster movies. Well, who are the real superheroes right now? It's the frontline workers during this time. So I think that's amazing. What I want you to do too, since it's Dream It and Do It is the name of the book, and you have Dream It and Do It, the Kid Role Models version, coming out in the spring of 2021. The release of this episode is going to be sometime in early January, possibly February of 2021, when people are listening. So we're not too far off from that actually being a reality. Can you give us a sneak peek into maybe some of the kidpreneurs or influences for that book?
Sure. So I'm still working on who is going to be in this book. So I can't release any names yet. But what I felt like when I was writing this book, I was doing just some social media ads, and kind of actually tripped upon this insight that the ads that were getting the most clicks were the ones that featured the kids that are in this book. And so it got me thinking about, of course that's true. Like, kids who see other kids doing things, it makes it feel even more realistic that, well, if they're in high school and can pull that off. Why couldn't I? And so what I want to do with my next book is write, and this will probably be more like 50 kids, but write true stories about kids who accomplished great things before their high school graduation.
Mhm.
And so, there's a kid that wrote a symphony, a kid that has written a book, a kid that has raised money for charity, a kid that is honoring his father who died of cancer, through this big show he's putting on. So just lots of really cool stories about how you don't have to do everything, just take a first step. And I think that's what is cool about what the mentality that kids have. And I think frankly entrepreneurs could learn a lot from exceptional kids, because they look at the world differently than adults do. Like, they haven't quite learned to doubt themselves. They haven't quite learned to say, but what if I fail? What will people think of me? And I know,
not even a thought.
Yeah. And I know kids have all sorts of different insecurities, but I really do think that exceptional kids have not been adult programmed.
Well, it's why it's the same reason your daughter is 6 months old now.
She's actually 9 months, but
9 months. So is she walking?
Yeah.
Is she walking?
She's trying to.
Okay. So in the next couple months or weeks, she'll be walking. In summertime, you'll be out somewhere near a pool. And it's the exact reason that you need to keep an eye on your daughter while she's near water, because she doesn't have she's not afraid of it. Right. She's going to go run in it. It looks fun. It's shiny. I'm going to go, because that's the mentality of a child, where as we become adults, we're like tiptoeing, and sometimes it's like go play and get wet, and sometimes you can there can be some dangers there as well, but you learn from them, and so I think that's kind of what you're talking about, is have a childlike energy to attack the world, like a little kid with a new G.I. Joe action figure.
There's a story in there
about I'm dating myself. We're talking about
there's a story in the book about a voice actor, and one of the things he says about the reason he's been so successful is that he didn't let himself ever grow up, and that because he's a voiceover for cartoons, he's actually respected in the industry, not necessarily for his voice talent, but for the fact that he can show up and be silly, which is a really hard thing for adults to do because it gets programmed out of us. So I think for kids to be able to see other kids who weren't scared and just took that one first step. And I guess if there are any parents listening, I only have a 9-month-old, so I frankly don't know a ton about parenting either. But what I have learned about in the research I've done is that if you can just encourage your kid to try that very first thing, you never know what step 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 is going to be. That if you can just encourage them to take that first step, and you don't have to do anything. If you want to have them try painting, you don't have to do something crazy. Just go buy a single canvas, a single paintbrush, and some paint. It's simple. And then if they like that, then maybe take a painting class. And it doesn't have to be hard to do that.
Right.
First.
I would even say too, is like I said, I have a 5-year-old, and my 2 cents in that is don't think about step 7. Think about just get them dirty, and here's a paintbrush, and have some fun. And if they show interest, then you do it a second time. But don't even be thinking about are they going to be in an art contest in middle school because I'm teaching them today? That's just too much extra unnecessary pressure. Let them play, let them create. I actually, one of the coolest moments in the last 5 years hanging with my daughter, what happened yesterday. We were driving in the car. I put on one of my favorite songs that I just happened to recently really caught my attention. It's got a good drum beat, which I'm a drummer, so anything with a good drum beat always gets my attention. I have it on. She's humming and singing along, and at the red light, I look at her in the mirror. She had her eyes closed and was totally rocking out to it. Her hands were in the air. She was eyes closed, grooving to the beat, and I was like she's got my genes. That's how I experience music. You're on a different planet. And that's when people ask me about drumming, I literally feel like I'm kind of in a different space. And so I just saw that, and I was like, that's awesome. Just the way the song was making her feel. And that's what I think is super important about music and art in general or expression, is that it allows you to get that out, And everyone has their own thing. Some people, it might be teaching history, and they might feel like they're in that space. That's their happy space. Me doing this podcast is literally a very similar feeling to me playing the drums. I love creating, and it's all about the audience, right? So I think that's huge. What I want you to touch on, and I got time for a few more questions. Are you good for a few more questions? We talked about the second book coming out. So now you're going to be a real pro at launching a book. Anyone in the audience who might be interested in doing that, can you walk through some of the key steps? I know we can talk about this for hours on how to make a book, but what are like 2 or 3 real key takeaways if you were to do your book all over that you can like streamline it?
The first thing I would say is don't put off choosing your publisher. So I chose to self-publish, and I kind of did some early research and thought, okay, you know what? This seems possible. Here's what I think it's going to cost. And then I went off, wrote the book, did the illustrations, and then came back and really did some deep diving into which publisher I wanted to use. And it turned out there were a lot more caveats to what it would cost than my early research showed. And so I didn't end up being able to, I wrote the book I wanted to write, but then I couldn't sell it for the price I wanted to sell it for. So I think the first thing is like really understand the printing industry so that as you're writing your book, you really have a good understanding of what it has to be in order to meet the price point that you're trying to meet. Because at the end of the day, like a children's book can't cost $50, right?
Right.
And so that was, I think, one.
That's not that far off. Like my brother released one, and didn't, he had to figure out everything and how to do this. This was probably a decade ago too. So there wasn't as many easy resources or YouTube videos on how to do this stuff quite yet. And his book came out, and I think it was like high teens, like maybe like $22. It was a children's book, amazing, funny book that he created. But a lot of people were like, man, $22 for a kid's book is a lot. He didn't come up with the price. It's like the people who are selling it need to make some money, and he needs to make a little bit of money on it. But it's and if you have something like this book is huge. Like this is a really good sized book with amazing artwork. I don't even want to know, what the cost is to make it, but I think you sell these on your website for $30. It's worth every dollar, by the way. And this is
Thank you.
Incredible. And then there's a hardcover version that's a little bit more, respectfully.
Yeah, and one of the things I tried to do, because frankly, I think this is something I feel every kid should have access to, and not just ones that can afford a $30 book. So I broke it down into 3 volumes. So you can also buy the book in thirds so that you're not making that investment all at once.
Wow. That's like being extremely mindful of like, I want everyone to be able to get access. If $30 is a reason you don't get access to this, then what can I do differently, right?
Honestly, like if in 10 years we were having this conversation again, my biggest dream would be that it's something that kids refer to in elementary school of like, oh, I gotta redream it and do it to help me figure out what I want to be. And it just becomes part of regular life where like kids can turn to the books I've written to help them think about what they want to study and what activities they want to get into. And I really do hope that like this is accessible, not just from a price point standpoint, but from a diversity standpoint as well.
I would be surprised if you get some emails from parents saying, my kid we read this book together and now they're doing this cool thing. And that's going to be the best feeling that's more than any dollar amount, right?
I couldn't agree more. My niece just told me over Christmas that she'd read about the veterinarian. And so previously we were very excited about being an astronaut. And then she read about the veterinarian and was like, maybe I want to be a vet now. So to me, like, what a great time to be a kid and be able to say on Monday, I want to do this. And then on Tuesday, I want to do this. Like, if you think about it, there's 100 things in here. If once a weekend you did something in that book to inspire a new hobby, that's 2 years. 2 years. Once a weekend, you just did some different activity, whether it's artistic or design or STEM or business. That's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. And by the time that child is 10, like your daughter, obviously with your influence, and she's going to be interested in this book, By the time she's 10, she's going to already be doing more things than people hit on their 40th birthday. Another thing too, not to go down too many tangents, because I want to get to the last few questions for you and get you on with the rest of your day. There's another a great influence that I got from Ed Milet, and he was talking about there's a time when he was like waiting for his car to be repaired, and he was sitting with his son, and an older gentleman came over, and his son was like 7 years old, something like that, and the old man was like, "How old is he? You know, oh, he's 7." He's like, "Well, enjoy it, because he's only going to be 7 once, and then he'll only be 8 once, and it's never the same, right?" And like Ed was thinking to himself, he might have even said to the guy respectfully, he's like, when does that change? How many people do you and I know, Holly, that have their 35th birthday, and then between age 35 and whenever they pass away, they kind of live the same year, or at least from like 35 to 50. They're like the same person. They kind of wear the same outfits. They go and do the same things. Their vacations are almost the same thing every year. It's like, oh, 9, 10, 11, 12, Disney 13, Disney 14. Like, how come you're just doing the same thing over and over? Get outside that box. And I think it's so true. And I want anyone who's listening to this, whether you're 21 or 51 or 81, think about how 2021, the brand new year right here, can do some things that you wouldn't normally do. If you're not a big book reader, here's your first one that you should get, right? Or, anything that is interesting to you, I recommend you go grab it and that you do that. So I want to talk more about you, because we talk about the book, and I promised we would talk more about yourself. And I learned right before I pressed record on this interview with you that and I knew you're in product development, but I did not know it was like an innovation and new product development role. As you heard in the bio, the last 15 years. Talk about your experiences. That's really some cool stuff.
Sure. So I started my career at SC Johnson, and they make like Raid and Ziploc and Glade and a whole bunch of brands that you probably recognize for your home. I spent 5 years with them traveling the world and really learning about how people clean their homes, how they care for bugs in their lives, and developed a number of new products that I launched while I was there, and worked in kind of an incubation type role where I helped people, the product managers in the company, come up with new ideas and figure out how to launch them. And that really sparked my love of new product development. I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this podcast can just relate to what it feels like to create something new in the world. And once I got my first taste of that, there was pretty much no looking back. So after that, I spent some time, I met my husband right after grad school, and he moved me to Shanghai, China for 3 years. And while we were there, because I followed him, I didn't have a job there waiting for me. So I figured out that there was a lot of startups there that needed my marketing help, but didn't necessarily have the budget to hire me as a consultant. So I figured out that I could teach them how to use crowdfunding, and that was a way to get their brand noticed in the States while still waiting to delay paying me, because I could help them raise the money, and then they would use some of their proceeds to actually pay me for my services. So I did that for 3 years, and it was absolutely wonderful. And I learned a ton about how to launch products and I was learning a new industry every 12 weeks, it seemed like. And then most recently, I worked for a ice cream company and helped them develop a number of new products. This last summer, the Cheesecake Factory ice cream launched, and that was really cool. I helped figure out how to create the first ice cream that actually has real cream cheese in it. And if you get a chance to try it, it is a spectacular product. But so anyways, I have been trained over the last decade and some change how to jump into a brand new industry, figure that industry out, and then develop and launch a product. So I feel like that really set me up for being in the right place at the right time with this, kind of dream for this book. And I will say, I really never, I didn't have a great plan, but what I knew was that if I just took the first step, then I would probably take the second, and then I would take the third. And next thing I knew, I had 100 stories written. And I really do think that, especially having a newborn at home, try not to think about, I think you said this perfectly earlier, step 7, just think about like, all right, what's step 1? All right, I did step 1, what's step 2? And the next thing you know, like you're at step 7. And once you're there, like you're not going to quit. You made it to step 7.
Well, you were present in step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to get to step 7. That's awesome. I wanted you to share that with our audience because you shared it with me, and I want to make sure we got it recorded. Basically, talking about your personal experiences are what inspired you to write the book. And I think that can go for anyone who's listening right now. What are your personal experiences that can help you go do X, Y, Z? And I think that's fantastic. Aside from, writing the new book that's coming out and taking care of your daughter and spending quality time with your husband, what are some of your other favorite activities? What makes Holly Holly? What do you enjoy doing?
Well, sadly, one of my favorite things in the world I have not been able to do in quite some time. I'm a karaoke junkie. It is, I'm,
I love it.
40 years old, and you really would not expect someone my age to hit the karaoke bars, but I absolutely love karaoke. I think it's an opportunity to perform and get creative juices
out.
It's
a ton of fun. Like, it's so much fun, and there's, it's okay to go up there and goof off. Like, you're not expected to be perfect. And then if you're actually above average, you're going to be a hero and people are going to love you. So it's a lot of fun.
I've never had a night out at a karaoke bar where I left going like, that was okay.
Like, I wish I would have stayed home.
Yes, exactly. So as someone who has, I think of my, one of the gifts that my parents gave me was having both a left brain and a right brain. So I feel like I have a lot of creativity that I have to share, but I also have a very classically trained business mind. And so I feel like doing karaoke, and I also paint, gives me a lot of that creative outlet that, especially when I'm doing more typical business type jobs, that I need.
You need to get it out. It's a release. It's an energy release too. So now you talked about amazing 100 stories. You had to set about 20 plus aside that didn't make it into the book. I'm wondering who your biggest influence is, and then talk about some of your favorite books and maybe podcasts or content that you tune into.
My biggest influence is my grandmother. I actually named my daughter after her. She was just a fierce woman before women were fierce. So
we're allowed to be fierce, right?
Exactly. So I talked a little bit about how she used to hitchhike to during the summer to get jobs so that she could pay for college. But even growing up, she was always the one that inspired me. She was a painter as well. And I would go to her house once a week after school, probably starting in junior high, which is about that age that I feel like teenage girls become a type of special that I'm sure you're looking forward to. And she really
good, the bad, and the ugly kind of.
Yes. And so I do feel like for being a young adult that, preteen and teenage girls don't often spend time with adults in a meaningful way. And I feel like it's such a waste that you have to get older to really appreciate the adults in your life. Often you're often out of the home before you really look back and go, man, I really wish I would have, appreciated my grandparents or my parents more. Well, this time that I had with her, she really helped me understand that creativity isn't just something that you are, it's something that you do, and that there's lots of different outlets for it. And I think we just talked about that it may be painting, it may be singing, it may be writing, whatever it is. She's the one that really helped me figure out how to make sure that creative piece of me was alive. And she helped me figure out that advertising, which is where I started my career, would be a good fit for me because it allowed me to use kind of the business part of my brain as well as the creative part of my brain. So I absolutely adore her. I wish every day that I could have just one more. So
one more day. Yeah. Well, you know what? You're honoring your grandma by taking care. Obviously, you honored her by naming your daughter after her, but also, her spirit lives on through the great things that she did with you, the memories that you guys have, and how it shaped you is what she's most proud of, and then how it's going to shape your daughter and any other future children that you may be blessed with. So, I'm dealing, like I said, with the loss of my father, just very fresh. And there were times when, we had magic, happy moments, and there were times where there's some adversity, father and son adversity, and it just makes me even more want to make him proud. And I wish I unfortunately didn't have the opportunity to say goodbye to him. And I thought about it. I'll just share this real quick. Um, the day that he passed away, when I woke up, I felt something that was telling me I should call the hospital. And he had COVID, so we could not go visit him. It was just a few weeks ago. We weren't able to go in. So I had this feeling that I should call the hospital and have the nurse write down on like one of their whiteboards a message from me. And I had something I really wanted to say to him, make sure he thought this before. I didn't know he was going to pass away that day, obviously. So it was going to be a message, and it was going to be signed Mikey. A lot of times he called me Mikey, especially when he was being positive with me. So I somehow, some reason, and I'm kicking myself, I talked myself out of doing that. And I thought I was going to get to talk to him on the phone, which I hadn't been able to do that week yet. And he had a BiPAP machine, so it's really hard for him to talk and to see or have a good conversation on the phone. So when I went to my mother's house that day, and my sister was already there, and my brother from Florida was on the phone, that's when they broke the news to me. And it's like, it just reminds me of that one more moment you can have, or that one more thing that you may regret. Like and this isn't about me, and I didn't want to take the floor from you there, but the point is, anyone listening, be so mindful to enjoy that one more moment with your grandma. And then if you're not able to, right, what think about their influence. You did have those magic moments with your grandma. Now it's her great granddaughter, right? That's going to get to experience her love through you. And Isabel, my daughter, she got to spend some quality time for 5 years with her grandpa. She's probably not going to remember much of it, but I can tell you that the things I learned from my dad, that I will continue to instill in her. She's benefiting from my dad years after he's gone.
One of the things that I feel like what might be great for you is to sit down, whether it's with your daughter or not, and write out some of those memories that you have with your father or lessons learned. Mm-hmm. And I think that you'll find how precious having it written down while it's fresh in your mind, and even just something you can pass on to her. Awesome. If you ever wanted to turn those memories into a book, I'm more than happy to give you some thoughts and advice on how to do that. But even just find a notebook and write what you feel today, because it's crazy how fast the memories become blurry, and just get it all down, write it.
Yeah, and you may not want to do it later on because it's too deep of a reflection. That's great, and thank you so much for listening there, and making it kind of a combined moment with your grandma and my dad. If this is not meant to be a curveball, and if you've listened to a few episodes, you may know it's coming. But if you can be known for one thing, what would that be, and why?
I did know it was coming, and now that we've had a chance to talk, I feel like maybe my answer is changing. Honestly, the answer is so simple, but somehow it feels complicated to say. I want to be known for helping kids find out who they are. I want to be known for playing a role, whether it's between parents and their kids or in the classroom, of if the president of the United States had someone that they could call to be my kid's trying to figure out who they want to be in the world, we need to get Holly Sharp in here to help coach her. I really want to help kids be what it is that they're intended to be in this world. And my husband and I always say about my daughter, we don't care what she does, but just go be good at it. And it's our job to help her have the resources and the love and the encouragement to go do it. But I think there's a story in there about a welder. Normally you wouldn't think oh, welder, I don't want my kid to be a welder. But he's one of the most successful people in the book. And frankly, it's a job that we need more than anything else in the world right now, is we need qualified welders. But anyways,
thank God that some people actually will want to be plumbers, because I certainly won't want to do it. So let them go do it. And There's so many different careers where there's this, I'm not very good with tools. So I'm not someone who would build a house. The thing would be crooked, So, and there's some people that are afraid to be on a microphone and they would not feel comfortable doing what I do. So I feel like, God blesses us, or if you believe in the universe or whatever it is that you believe in, that blesses us with diversity in people and talents and skills. It's designed just like how there's different fruits and vegetables and foods, and there's not only one kind of thing. And it's important to realize what you're good at, and then go, and you just said it, be the best you can. That's why I say be great and be grateful. Be great in the thing that you're really good at, and continue to sharpen your skills, and then be grateful for the opportunity to do that and inspire more people to do what they want to do. And that's why I like this. And I'm glad I'm giving a way too late shout out to Lori Orlinsky and to Allison Fody-Bork, because they connected the two of us. This book is like, this could be sponsored by Mic'd Up. I mean, like, the stories in this book are exactly why I'm doing my show, to inspire people to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. And I've never had a guest out of the 62 plus episodes that are out right now that can answer this question. I feel like more clearly because of your book. So if you can leave one message to our audience to inspire them, I should say, to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams, what would you tell them?
Just do not be afraid to fail. Honestly, trying is so much better than not trying, because you think that failing is so harmful that it really, like, I'm not an author. I don't even know that I had the right to be an author. Luckily, I had a great editor. But if I didn't write this book because I thought, well, I'm not an author, or I will admit, even when I hit go live on Amazon and realize that, like, oh, wait, real people are going to read this and have feedback for me, it's horrifying. But on the other end of it is, there's no greater feeling in the world than having done something brand new and trying it. And so unquestionably, my advice would be, if you have this dream in your heart, just exactly, don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid to fail. And if you do fail, you'll have learned something from it. And I bet you'll pick yourself up and you'll try again. And maybe it'll take 99 times, but man, to get to the end of your life and look back and wish you would have done something, that is so much worse than trying and failing.
Yeah, and here's the thing: failure is not definite unless you make it definite.
Yeah, it's
like
only
the kid who tries to ride his bike once, falls, scrapes his knee, never rides a bike ever again in his life, failed, and it became definite. Where, as you know, when you ride a bike, that happens from time to time, but most kids, if not all, eventually learn how to ride the bike without scuffing their knee every single time. So, that's a small situation. We're talking big, but it doesn't have to be. It could be as small as riding the bike. It could be as big as going and doing every year, doing something fun that's new. Like I still have never been, and I live in Buffalo, New York. Can you believe I've never been skiing before or snowboarding? I'm not a huge fan of the snow. I'm just not. And so, my girlfriend is pushing me. She enjoys skiing. So we're going to be going soon on the slopes. And at first, like 5 years ago, Mike would have been like, no, I'm not interested in it. I don't want to get hurt, whatever. Now it's like, hell yeah, let's go and do this. Like, I'm excited because I know I'm going to learn and grow and do something different. And it's pushing me to be thinking and growing. So I think that's awesome. I love that. To wrap the show up here, what are 3 things that you're most grateful for?
God, the first answer is so cheesy, but my daughter is an IVF baby. So we worked for many, many years to create this little miracle. So I'm incredibly grateful that the universe gave me her, because, man, we sure didn't work at it.
Yeah.
The second thing I am grateful for is that this book came from my heart, and that the world liked it. I think I mentioned this before. Like, it really is a very public thing. Like, imagine if you go to your job and then the moment you hit send, everyone's allowed to see what you did. And it was a far more public thing than I've ever done before. So I'm really grateful that people have been so accepting and loving of this book. And the third thing that I am grateful for is the opportunity to help educate kids about some of the things I'm passionate about. So in the book, you'll see things about vaccinating and saving the planet and things that aren't necessarily popular with everyone, but I think that they're lessons that if I can have a part in helping kids to become better versions of themselves or learn about something or make the world a better place, then I think that my life will have mattered.
Yeah. We're talking about parents and grandparents. And one of the things my grandfather, who's no longer with us, taught me was to use your voice, right? Like if you have it, use it. You're using your voice in your book. Again, you could share these things, awesome lessons with your daughter, but that would help one person, two people really, because the teacher always learns as much, if not more, than the student. But you didn't want to do that. You wanted to get it out. Again, guys, I've had some amazing guests on this show. I'm grateful for each one. But Holly's book is really what my show is all about. Dream it and do it, right? Be brave and bold in pursuit of your dreams. Dream it and do it. This book can be found again at dreamitanddowit.com. Is there anything else you'd like to add before you get back with your family?
I think the only thing is that as we're looking to next year and homeschooling, I was actually contacted by a couple people to do some homeschooling focused podcasts and guest blogs, because there is a use for short story books like this in the homeschooling world where, if as kids need to take short breaks and have something else to focus on, or even just like they finish their test first. It's interesting to me that in the world of short stories, some people have taken notice of the book and have recommended it as a way to help supplement homeschooling. So if you do have a homeschooled kid, I'm super excited that this seems to be something that's working. So hopefully, and frankly, like I've been thinking about doing some sort of like virtual career tour. So if
oh, that's awesome. You got to do it. Do it.
I don't know what it looks like yet. So if anyone has any ideas for me, I'm very open to collaborations, but
I think it's a big need. I just want to chime in quick and say, like, there's so many things I feel like we learn in school, and this is not to bash the school system. I think it's important to go and get an education. Education and application is super important. That's how anything happens in this world. But we learn some really silly things that I feel, I learned it to pass a quiz, and then I learned to pass a test, and then I learned to pass the end of the year exam. And then I may have needed it again 3 years later. But then now 25 years after learning it, I don't necessarily use it or need it anymore, where something that can be taught in this book is applicable for the rest of your life. It's an inspiration. It's a seed of thought. And then it's also like, this is just the beginning. Once you learn about Elon Musk, you can go follow him. And if you're looking to innovate, then you can follow his story, or anybody, the welder, can follow their story. And many people have their own books with literally lessons on how to go and do it. You can go to YouTube and you can learn how to do it. So super well said. And I do believe this book belongs in the classroom, and I believe virtual career opportunities need to be something that kids are getting, because who knows how long the pandemic goes on for. Who knows with the children who unfortunately suffered losing a lot of their school year are going to be like education wise, right? Academically in the next 5 years. How important is a book like this during that? And I don't know if I lost you. Did I lose your audio?
Nope, I'm here.
We're here. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I was really excited to hear that it was getting some positive feedback from people that were using it that way. And hopefully I can make a difference in the classroom as well. And, I hope this is okay with you, because we didn't actually talk about this before, but for anyone in your audience that did want to experience the book, if you use Mike as the code, you can get 10% off the book, because I really want for as many kids as possible to have access to this.
So just MIKE in the store.
Yep.
again, on your website, or can they do that on Amazon?
Just on my website.
On the website. So again, Dream It, and it's spelled Dream It, A-N-D. I'm sorry.
That second D is missing. Yeah, so it's Dream It, ANDOIT.com.
Gotcha. That's how it was written here. I wanted to make sure it wasn't a typo on my part.
I chose the URL the night before I gave birth to my daughter, so I was not exactly as with it as I might have been.
That's okay. So it has the 1D in the end.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And so if they go there, they can purchase it. Use promo code MIKE, and they'll save 10%, and that's an awesome little gift there. It's after the holiday season now, but this is a gift that's not for someone to just read one time. This is that book that's going to stay on your child or my bookshelf. I don't care how old you are. This is one that's going to be there for the multiple reference.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me on. This was really wonderful.
This was wonderful, and I'm looking forward to your second book and reading that with Isabel as well. And just want to say thank you to everyone who's tuning in to learn about Holly. Guys, connect with her again on Instagram and Facebook. I have the links here if you're watching this. And thank you so much for your time, taking your time out of your busy day, being with your daughter and your husband as well. And I just want to wish you an awesome 2021.
Thanks, you too.
I love you guys, and thank you so much for tuning in. Check out more show notes and information on each episode at mikeduppodcast.com, MIKEDuppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.